All right, let's talk about data. In our world, it's pretty much everything. But how do you actually get to it? How do you access it in a way that's safe, consistent, and, well, not a complete nightmare? The answer, as we're about to find out, is all about building the perfect front door. And this is the one idea I really want you to hang on to. Just picture all of your company's valuable data living inside this huge, complicated building. An API, that's Application Programming Interface, is that one single front door. It's the gatekeeper that decides who gets in, what they're allowed to see, and exactly how they can interact with everything inside. But, to really appreciate a solid front door, you first have to understand the chaotic house it's protecting. And let me tell you, that house is usually a total mess. Yeah, see, your data isn't just sitting in one neat little room. Oh no, it is scattered absolutely everywhere. It's in data warehouses, in data lakes, in your everyday operational databases, spread across dozens of SaaS apps you use. Without that single controlled entry point, it's just chaos. Trying to get information is like trying to climb through random windows on different floors, and you have no idea who else might be climbing in with you. And this is exactly where the API steps in. It becomes that one standardized front door. It totally doesn't matter if the data you need is in the basement or way up in the attic. The API gives you one consistent way to ask for it. It hides all that crazy internal complexity, and, most importantly, it enforces the rules of the house. Okay, so we've all agreed we need a door, but not all doors are built the same, right? Depending on what you need, you might pick a classic wooden door, maybe a fancy revolving door, or even a super high-tech pneumatic tube. Let's take a look at the different styles you can choose from. So let's break these down. Rest is the one you'll see most often. It's like having a hallway with a bunch of clearly labeled doors, one for customers, another for orders. It's simple, and pretty much everyone understands how it works. Then you've got GraphQL. This was actually born at Facebook because their mobile app had a huge problem. It was either asking for way too much data, which wasted people's data plans, or not enough, which meant it had to make multiple trips back to the server. So GraphQL acts like a personal concierge at the door. You give it a very specific list of exactly what you need, and it goes and gets just that, all in one trip. And finally, there's gRPC. Think of this as your internal high-speed pneumatic tube system. It's incredibly fast and efficient for communication that happens inside the building, between your own services. Now, just picking a style is only the beginning. If you want to build a door that's actually useful and not just a frustrating bottleneck, you're going to need some solid architectural blueprints. So let's think about a really common data problem. Imagine you have 1 million records, 1 million people who all want to come through your front door at the exact same time. If you just swing the doors wide open, it's going to be chaos. Your server will crash, your whole application will just freeze. So how do you handle that? Well, you don't let everyone in at once. This brings us to a really clever solution called pagination. It's basically like forming an orderly line. The application asks for just the first page, let's say the first 50 people. The API delivers just that small, manageable group and also says, by the way, there are 4,500 people in total. This brilliant little process prevents a stampede and keeps everything running nice and smooth. Right, and you also shouldn't force your visitors to wander through the entire building just to find the one thing they need. A well-designed API lets people filter and sort, and lets a user say, hey, I only want to see orders that are completed, and could you please show me the most expensive ones first? It's just way more efficient, it's faster, and honestly, it's respectful of the user's time. Sooner or later, you're going to want to renovate your entryway. But what about all the people who are used to the old door? Well, that's where versioning comes in. By creating a V2 or version 2, you can build a new and improved entrance while keeping that old V1 door open and working for everyone who still uses it. The key rule here is you only create a new version when you're making a breaking change, something that would totally confuse or break the experience for your existing visitors. Okay, now for what is arguably the most important part of any front door, the security system. I mean, an unlocked, unguarded door to all your data is basically an invitation for disaster. We need locks, we need keys, and we probably need a bouncer. Here we have the two absolute pillars of security. First up is authentication. This is all about identity. It's the question, who are you? It's like showing your ID at the door. But then once you're inside, we have authorization. This is the question, okay, what are you allowed to do? Just because you're in the building doesn't mean you get to walk into the CEO's office or the vault. That's your access level. And what about that bouncer? Well, in the API world, that's called rate limiting. If someone or some script tries to hammer your front door 1,000 times a second, whether it's by accident or on purpose, the API is going to step in and stop them. It'll send back this famous status code, 429, too many requests. It's the API's way of saying, hey, slow down, you're overwhelming the system. Whew, we have covered a lot of ground, from picking the style of your door all the way to its security system. So let's wrap this all up by looking at some super common mistakes and the key principles you need to keep your data house safe and in order. This really just boils down to avoiding a few classic blunders. First, please do not just dump your entire database out the front door for every request. Use pagination. Also, avoid using weird, cryptic internal field names that nobody outside your team understands. And never ever assume that a read-only API doesn't need security. A data leak is still a data leak. Finally, try to make sure each door, each endpoint, has one specific job. So when it's all said and done, building a great data API really comes down to these 4 pillars. Security is just non-negotiable. Performance is what ensures it's actually usable when lots of people are trying to get in. Consistency in your design makes it predictable and way easier for developers to work with. And finally, you should really have different doors for different purposes. One for day-to-day operational stuff and a separate heavy-duty door for big data analytics. And that brings us to this one last thought. A well-designed API is a welcoming, secure, and super efficient entrance to your data. But a poorly designed one, well, it's a frustrating, confusing, and maybe even dangerous obstacle. So take a look at your own systems and ask yourself, what kind of front door have you built?